Hello, wonderful advanced math class. I'm so glad you're here for solving variable equations strategy number 2, which is going to be visualizing it today. So if you actually really what you can do, if you want to go back to the page you did last time's on, depending on how much space you have, we're going to work the same we-dos we did last time plus 2 more with a new strategy. So if you really want to find the same page you worked last time and call it strategy like number 1 and 2, you can do that, and as long as you have some room. So if you did your we-do, and it only took part of the page, we'll do like strategy number 2 under it, and then we'll do a couple more we-dos. So I don't know how much space you have, but we are going to work the same 2 we-dos you did last time. So everyone, you organize your page, go ahead. If you want to make a new one, if you just want to add on to your last one, that'll all be fine. And unpause when you're ready to go. So we talked last time real quick about the difference between expressions and equations. And we talked about how expressions, the variable is always unknown. There's no way to figure out what x is worth in this expression, but we used a common sense strategy to look at an expression like this and say 2 times what is 10, and I just know that x equals 5, and that's its solution. That's what we did last time. And today I want to teach you a second out of 4 strategies to solve problems like these in case common sense is a little too tricky, or sometimes common sense is different for different people on different problems. So I want you to have another approach when you can't just look at it and figure it out. So here's the ones we did last time. We did these both with common sense, and I just want to think about visualizing today. So when we do an equation, we're thinking about 2 things being equal. Something over here being equal to something over here. So in this case, I've got 30 over here and 5h over here. So I'm actually just going to draw like 5h. And the amount of those 2 things is equal. So really what I'm trying to do in this one, if I want to visualize it, is figure out what is each h equal to. And I can start, this is a lot like using common sense, but sometimes the visual really helps, right? And I can say, okay, I've got 30 things, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them here. What do they each have to be? Well, we'll take that 30 and divide it up 5 ways. They each have to be 6 in this case. And I can double check and make sure I'm right. 6, 12, 18, 24, 30. So I like to kind of build out this thing I can see. I'll go back. And this visualizing sometimes helps me figure out, say, oh, hey, if I look at it like this, it's not too hard to figure out what each h has to be. I need it to add up to 30. There's 5 of them. So it's like, thinking 30 divided by 5. Each one of those is equal to 6. And that's how I would visualize it. I just draw these 2 boxes, and if it helps me, it doesn't help me on every problem, but sometimes it does. This one, so we already had our expression number 1 last time. I know you already saw, was that this board is 15 meters long. And expression number 2 is the 2 pieces, right? One piece is 7 meters. What's the length of the other board? And I'll just do x, I don't know what it is. And so same thing, I want to think about 2 things being equal. On this side I have 15. On this side, if I want to visualize it, I have 7 and an unknown. And I can use that visual to kind of think about what the unknown has to be. And again, I know these are very easy ones that you can do with common sense, but I can look at that and say, oh, if that's 8, then I've got 15 over here, and I've got 15 over here. So x is 8. So that's a lot like using the common sense strategy, of course. I'm going to do some more I-dos. The reason I want to bring it up is sometimes they're not quite so obvious that common sense may not work. And that's why we need some other strategies. So like when I look at this one, 5x equals 13, what's x? It's not super obvious enough to use common sense. It's not going to be a whole number. 5 times 2 would be 10. 5 times 3 would be 15. And so sometimes it's just not quite so obvious. And the visual strategy and the strategies I'm going to show you in a few days can really help. So in this case, I'm going to do the same thing. So on this side and this side are equal. And again, the visualizing just is a tool to help me out. There's not a certain way you have to do it. This is just one that works to me. So I've got 5x on this side. They're all equal, right? Each x has to be the same unknown value. And there's 13 over here, and I'm trying to figure out what each x equals. Well, when I look at it like this, I'm trying to find something that when I add it to itself 5 times, I get 13. So I'm thinking to myself when I see this, like, okay, this whole side needs to be 13 also for them to be equal. And there's 5 x's, so I need each x to be whatever 13 divided by 5 is. If you remember back from 5th grade, you're like, oh, you can't divide 13 by 5. But you can. 13 divided by 5 is 13/5. Division works that simply. And let's see, 5/5 is 1. 10/5 is 2. And there would be another 3/5 left. So I've got each x is 2 and 3/5. Other option is you could have just done this with a calculator, and you would have gotten that x equals 2 and 6/10. Either of those answers would have been fine. So that way the visual strategy helps me when maybe common sense is not so obvious. Let's do another one. Pack of 6 raffle tickets costs $9. How much is each ticket? Costs. Pack costs, sorry. $9. How much is each ticket? So expression number 1, I guess, is my total, which is $9. Expression number 2, I guess, is the tickets. And pack of 6 costs $9. So 6 times however much they cost equals $9. 6 times something equals $9. There's my equation. Let's use the visual strategy and figure that out. So on this side, I've got $9. That's equal to whatever I have on this side, which is 6 C's. And I've got to figure out what each C equals. That's finding the solution to an equation. All right, so I know that this side is $9, so all these are going to be $9. So I've got, let's see, whatever these C's are, 9, and they're going to be divided into 6 because there's 6 C's. That's what it is. Well, you can't divide 9 by 6. Yes, you can. 9 divided by 6 is 9/6. 6/6 makes 1, and there would be 3/6 left over. That is 1 and 3/6. Since it says cost, maybe better to do in dollars and cents. So if you did 9 divided by 6 in a calculator, I believe you would get $1.50. So that's how the visual strategy works. Let's open your notes and write a couple down. So first I want to do the exact same 2 that we did last time. So you don't really need to rewrite these problems if you have space on your page from last time. We can just write the second strategy underneath. So if you want to maybe put up, a spot that says common sense above the work you already did, and then do visual underneath, we can just work it a second way. So in this one, g plus 2 4/10 equals 12 4/10. So I'm going to I like to just make those boxes and say, whatever's in this box has got to be equal to whatever's in this box. So the box on the right has a g and a 2 4/10 in it. The box on the right has a 12 4/10 in it. And I have to just figure out what g is to make both of these boxes have the same amount. And so if g is 10, both boxes have 12 4/10. Again, when they're really easy, it's not all that different than using the common sense strategy. Okay. Second one, I know you already have your expressions written, so I'll just write these down. I think we had it as 44 equals 4 times Jackson's age. And so if we want to do a second strategy for that, my 2 boxes need to be equal. 44 on this side, 4 J's on this side. And again, you're trying to figure out what each of those J's equals. So if I want this whole side to be 44, and there's 4 things to divide that 44 among, I kind of think to myself, well, each of those is going to be 44 divided by 4, and J will be 11. 11, 11, 11, 11. That would make 44. Hope it's a good strategy. I really like it. It seems clear to me and very usable. So I like it. So let's do a couple now that are not so simple with common sense that this strategy really potentially helps you out with. So go ahead and pause and write these 2 examples down on the bottom of this page. You can say, these are harder examples or, less obvious examples. They're not really harder. That's a good one. Less obvious. And then we'll work these out as well. Okay. So using my strategy here, 4x equals 11, not obvious. It's not a whole number. 4 times what is 11? It's not like a whole number that I know. So I'm going to draw my visual strategy. So on this side, I have 4 x's. And on this side, I have 11. And I need what's in the 2 boxes to be equal to each other. So all of these x's are the same, and added up, they're going to make 11 altogether. So each one would be whatever 11 divided by 4 equals. You can't divide 11 by 4. Yes, you can. 1, you can just use a calculator. 2, very simply, 11 divided by 4 is 11 fourths. And let's see, 4 fourths makes 1, 8 fourths makes 2, 12 fourths makes 3. I don't have 12 fourths, so I'd have 2 from the 8 fourths and another 3 fourths left. So x equals 2 and 3 fourths. If you put 11 divided by 4 in a calculator, x would equal 2 and 75 hundredths. Those are the same answer right there. So the visual strategy helps when it's not perfectly quite so obvious. One more. 3 laps around Harbins Park is 8 miles. How far is each lap? I thought of it last time. A lot of you probably figured you could actually solve this using a ratio if you wanted, just like you could have solved that last one that I did with a ratio. But I wanna stick with variables since that's what we're doing. So expression number 1, expression number 2, we need my equation first. 3 laps around Harbins Park. I guess I'll do an H for Harbins. And then the total maybe can be our other one. We can do laps and total are equal to each other. 3 laps is equal to the total, 8 miles. And so those are equal. 3H equals 8. Not super obvious with the common sense strategy what H is. If this were 9, it would be super obvious. 3 times what is 9 we could do, but it's not. So on this side, I've got my 3 H's. That's equivalent to what's in this box on this side. And I've just got to figure out what each of these H's is. I know they're going to be 8 in total, and there's 3 of them. So they're kind of whatever 8 divided by 3 is, which is 8 thirds. 3 thirds is 1. 6 thirds is 2. And I would have 2 left. So H equals 2 and 2 thirds. All right. That is the visual strategy for solving equations. I think it is helpful. I think it is clear. And I hope you really like it and understand it. That is all for today. If you need to go back and view any of these many examples I did a bunch today, please do. And I'll see you in class.